0300 hours. Deep inside a reinforced command bunker in Zaporizhia, 15 flickering white icons materialize on a high-resolution tactical overlay. These are not just data points. They are the vanguard of a black tide protocol. Behind the glow of dual monitor setups, operators watch as their FP-1 strike drones cross the threshold into Russia's most sensitive maritime artery. The target, Novorossiysk. Inside that harbor sits a $60 million a day economic pulse, and the Admiral Essen, a frigate designed for a war that no longer exists. What you're about to see isn't just a raid. It is the systematic dismantling of a superpower's energy spine in real time. The hatred between the two sides is vicious and personal. Ukraine is coming for everything Russian with cold, calculated fury, while Russia is forced to improvise desperate defenses with whatever it has left after years of Ukrainian drones tearing its air defense network to pieces. This is not some distant theory. This is a raw, live dogfight in the dark skies over the Black Sea, where Ukrainian ingenuity is humiliating Russia's once feared military machine. If even one missile had detonated inside that port, the entire fuel complex could have burned for days. So the question is no longer whether Russia can stop these attacks. The real question is, how long can the system survive under constant pressure? Before we dive into the cockpit of the interceptor, I have to ask, as Ukraine strikes deeper into Russia's critical export hubs, is the Kremlin justified in escalating against Ukrainian civilian energy, or has Putin lost the moral and strategic high ground to even retaliate? This isn't just about drones, it's about the laws of war in 2026. Pause the video and drop your thoughts in the comments. I'm reading every single one. Through the Yak pilot's thermal display, the formation looked like a perfect string of white dots against the cold gray terrain. Each drone was a Ukrainian FP-1, a domestically produced long-range strike weapon built from plywood and composite 2.5-meter wingspan, powered by a 2-cylinder engine pushing it to 180 kilometers per hour. It can fly 1,000 kilometers with a 50-kilogram warhead in its nose, cheap enough to lose by the dozen, yet deadly enough that Russia has been forced to completely reinvent its entire air defense doctrine just to survive them. The Yak pilot had been shadowing the formation for 12 long minutes, waiting for the perfect geometry. At 0305, he throttled back to 140 kilometers per hour and slid silently into the drone's wake. No Su-30SM could ever do that without stalling out of the sky at this speed. A conventional fighter screams past at over 250 kilometers per hour, gets maybe 3 seconds of engagement time, and has to circle all the way back around for another run. The Yak simply sat behind the drones at their exact altitude for minutes on end, lining up shot after shot. Chasing a bicycle with a Ferrari sounds impressive until you realize you cannot slow down enough to stay beside it. The Yak-52 is the other bicycle. At 0307, the pilot closed to just 50 meters behind the trailing FP-1. Something kicked hard under the wing. A flat crack that the slipstream instantly swallowed. At that range, 9 pellets of double buckshot spread into a pattern roughly 2 meters wide. The drone's wingspan is 2.5 meters. The spread was perfect. That was a Saiga 12 semi-automatic 12-gauge shotgun bolted under the right wing of a plane once used to teach teenagers how to fly. 10-round magazine. Effective pattern out to 50 meters. Under the left wing sat a Pegram S-400 thermal turret, the same kind of infrared sensor used on border patrol aircraft, scanning for heat in total darkness. The FP-1's 2-cylinder engine puts out 5 to 10 kilowatts of thermal energy. Against the cold night air, the Pegram picked it up from 3 to 5 kilometers away like spotting lit matches in a dark parking lot. The computer painted a targeting reticle straight onto the pilot's display and wired it to the trigger on his control stick. One squeeze and whatever the reticle was sitting on took 9 pellets of double buckshot with 0 self-protection. The first drone took pellets through its plywood wing skin and kept flying. Plywood is surprisingly forgiving, but each 8mm hole dragged on the airframe. A drone that had been fueled to arrive with minutes of reserve was now burning through that margin just to hold 180 kilometers per hour. 15 minutes of flight time became 5. Barely enough for an operator to manually steer it through a crowded port onto a specific target. The second shot ripped into another drone's propeller. The engine screamed as the unbalanced blade tore the hub apart and the FP-1 hammered straight into the dark terrain below. A $55,000 drone taken down by a $2 shotgun shell from a plane that costs less per flight hour than a parking spot in Manhattan. The third trigger pull punched clean through a fuselage. That drone wobbled, but held together, trailing heavy drag. The fourth hit another wing surface. Through the canopy, the pilot could see bright tracer sparks where the pellets punched through plywood in the darkness. The Saiga's 10-round magazine ran dry after the 10th shot. There was no way to reload a wing-mounted shotgun in flight. The world's cheapest air-to-air engagement and the reload procedure meant landing the airplane. 3 drones confirmed destroyed on the thermal camera. At least 2 more trailing visible damage and burning fuel they could not afford to lose. 12 surviving FP-1s pushed south over the Sea of Azov and out across the Black Sea. The Yak's combat radius could not follow them over open water. The pilot banked north after radioing a contact report. 12 targets bearing 175 altitude 100 meters, speed 180. That report went straight to the R-330ZH Zytel electronic warfare operators in Crimea. Russia's dedicated GPS jamming trucks immediately calibrated for what was about to become the longest 400 kilometers those 12 drones would ever fly. Halfway through this intense night battle, I need to hear from you again. Do you believe Ukraine's low-cost drones will keep overwhelming Russia's desperate improvised defenses? Or will the Kremlin finally find a way to stop this wave of attacks before its entire Black Sea fleet is crippled? Tell me honestly in the comments right now, because the action is still unfolding and the world is watching every single move. 12 drones over the Black Sea at night with 400 kilometers of open water ahead. The American taxpayer spent tens of billions building the GPS constellation those drones were navigating by. Russia was about to make the entire system lie using a truck that costs less than the F-150 your neighbor just financed for 84 months. The drifting started within minutes of leaving the coast. The operators watching telemetry saw a slow slide in GPS positions, barely perceptible. The kind of creep you might dismiss as normal variance if you were not actively looking for it. They were looking for it. The lead operator flagged the drift and started a stopwatch. Firepoint Ukraine's drone strike coordination software gives the algorithm up to 10 seconds to confirm spoofing before the operator manually dumps GPS and switches to inertial backup. 10 seconds. The formation was covering 30 kilometers every 10 minutes. That is a lot of ocean to wander through a lie. This was not jamming, this was spoofing. The R-330ZH Zytel is Russia's dedicated GPS countermeasure system, a truck-mounted electronic warfare suite, broadcasting on L1 and L2 frequencies across a 150-kilometer radius. It does not shout over the real signal, it whispers over it. The real satellite signal at the drone's altitude is unimaginably faint. The Zhitel's fake signal was 10 million times stronger. The drones accepted the lie as real and followed it without question. 3 drones never caught the drift in time. 2 slammed into the water when spoofed altitude data conflicted with the flight controller. A third was pushed so far east it burned through its entire fuel reserve over open water. 3 drones erased by nothing but electricity and a lie. Roughly $165,000 of hardware gone for the cost of watts. The surviving drones dumped the corrupted GPS and switched to inertial navigation alone. That drifts about 10 meters per minute with nothing to check it against over a 90-minute Black Sea transit. That adds up to nearly a kilometer of positional uncertainty, enough to find a city, not enough to find a ship. The operators were now flying manually through satellite video with a half-second delay. Half a second does not sound like much until you realize the drone covers 25 meters in that time. Like trying to parallel park while watching your car on a security camera feed from inside the house. 6 FP-1s finally crossed the coast. Compromised GPS shotgun-damaged airframes operators flying blind through satellite video. But their cameras still worked. And what those cameras showed was pure devastation waiting to happen. Oil loading berths, massive fuel storage tanks, the Sheskharis terminal, handling 75 million tons of annual throughput and $60 million a day in export revenue, all packed inside the port complex right next to the naval base. And sitting among it all was the distinctive radar mast of the Admiral Essen, a 4,000-ton Grigorovich-class frigate built to carry caliber cruise missiles and enough sensors to track every contact within 150 kilometers. The operators steered with deadly intent. On one screen, the port approach filled the frame at 180 kilometers per hour. Oil storage tanks slid past on the left, the skeletal frame of a loading crane on the right, a crude tanker sitting low and heavy straight ahead. The operator nudged the drone left around the tanker's stern. The fuel gauge read 4%, maybe 90 seconds left. 5 other operators were doing the exact same thing on 5 other screens, each threading a different lethal path through the port. The Tor M2 battery on shore had all 6 contacts locked. 16 missiles ready. The operator's finger hovered over the commit button. Clearance from Shore Command took 4 agonizing seconds. Permission denied. The projected blast radius of the warheads overlapped with 3 fuel storage tanks and a pipeline manifold feeding the loading berths. 1 errant missile, and Russia's largest Black Sea oil export terminal would burn for a week. The tragedy of the Admiral Essen isn't just tactical, it's industrial. In 2026, Russia's military-industrial complex isn't just failing to innovate, it's failing to repair. The MR-90 OREK radars, melted in a previous strike, remain dark because the high-frequency microchips required for their arrays are trapped behind an iron curtain of global sanctions. The Essen was fighting blind not by choice, but because the Kremlin can no longer replace the 21st century technology it continues to lose. The drones that got through came from the angles nobody was watching. 1 FP-1 operator watched the frigate's bow fill the entire camera frame. The A-190 gun mount, the anchor deck, the forward superstructure, growing until the screen went white. 50 kilograms slammed into the hull below the waterline, right next to the MGK-33-5M Platina sonar and the UKSK vertical launch cells, loaded with caliber cruise missiles. The access infrastructure power routing and deck equipment surrounding the cells were wrecked. 2 direct hits were enough. 4 drones missed in the final chaotic seconds rushed by low fuel and video delay. But 2 hits were more than enough to turn the night into a nightmare for the Russian Black Sea Fleet. The hatred that fuels this war just got a whole lot hotter. When Novorossiysk burns, the smoke doesn't just reach Moscow, it reaches the global energy markets. This strike is a red line warning to the world. The lifeline of one of the planet's largest oil exporters is now vulnerable to a $5,000 piece of plywood. We are witnessing a total network kill of Russia's energy security. If Putin cannot protect his most guarded port, no ship is safe and no pipeline is secure. The gears of the Russian war machine are grinding to a halt, one burnt terminal at a time. If you found this analysis vital, watch our deep dive into the collapse of the Black Sea Fleet right here. The momentum has shifted, history is being written in fire. Click subscribe now. Don't miss a single moment of this historic journey. Your time is valuable. We promise analyses as sharp as reality itself. Stay vigilant, stay informed. We'll see you in the next video. Disclaimer: this video contains content generated or supported in whole or in part by artificial intelligence. This material is intended solely for simulation, illustration, and entertainment purposes. It does not represent real-world events, nor does it constitute political or military advice or verified information. Certain elements may be fictional, dramatized, or inaccurate. Viewers should not rely on this video as a credible source of information or as a basis for real-world decision-making.